Welcome to American entrepreneurship.
The press has become so dishonest that if we don't talk about it, we are doing a tremendous disservice to the American people. Tremendous disservice. We have to talk about it.
We have no personal stake in this other than the fact that we wanted major change in the United States, and that is what major change looks like.
I'm making this presentation directly to the American people with the media present, which is an honor to have you. This morning, because many of our nation's reporters and folks will not tell you the truth.
What's happening is the media can no longer understand that Flynn was not intended to remain in the National Security Agency. That's news.
Because that was classified information that was given illegally. That's the real problem. Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system.
From the beginning that we put in Flynn, but it was not intended to keep him there all the time.
However, lack of facts doesn't stop the anti-Trump press from whipping up hysteria. First, the Trump haters are fervently hoping they can link the Trump campaign to the Russian hackers who disrupted the Clinton campaign. That's the ultimate goal for the haters. If they cannot achieve that, they'd like to have General Flynn tell the world that Donald Trump ordered him to call the Russian ambassador. So that's the media game plan.
The press honestly is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control.
We have never taken seriously from the very beginning, Russia hacked our election. That was a 9/11 scale event. They attacked the core of our very democracy. That was a Pearl Harbor scale event.
Now here's how crazy that statement is. Say President Trump declared war on Russia, as we did after Pearl Harbor. Would Thomas Friedman support that?
I inherited a mess.
According to leaks from the intelligence agencies, Flynn discussed Mr. Obama's sanctions against Russia. Then General Flynn denied that to Vice President Mike Pence. The FBI also interviewed General Flynn, and if he lied to them, that would be a crime. However, that's a big if. It is not a crime for Mr. Flynn to informally talk with the Russian ambassador before Donald Trump took office, but it's highly inappropriate if policy was discussed. So at this point, Flynn's out, and it looks like retired Vice Admiral Robert Harwood will take his place. Admiral Harwood is 60 years old, has extensive military experience, served in Afghanistan. Looks like a solid choice, but you never know. By the way, the FBI is still investigating the whole Russian situation, but that's all we know at this point.
In other words, we place people in positions, then we take them out. The chief of staff or the chief CEO, which is what Trump is, comes in and fires and fires. The reason why America is not used to this is America has become lazy. It has become surfeit. It has become non-capitalistic. When we put a businessman, this is the first businessman in 100 years that we've put into the presidency, the first thing the businessman does, and he correctly does, is he fires the people who have helped him. He fires the people who have not helped him, and it's not personal.
Mike Flynn is a fine person, and I asked for his resignation. He respectfully gave it. He is a man who, there was a certain amount of information given to Vice President Pence, who's with us today, and I was not happy with the way that information was given. He didn't have to do that because what he did wasn't wrong. What he did in terms of the information he saw, what was wrong was the way that other people, including yourselves in this room, were given that information.
Now, what in fact happened? Flynn did not commit any crimes, neither did anybody in the Trump administration.
Because that was classified information that was given illegally. That's the real problem. And, you can talk all you want about Russia, which was all a, fake news fabricated deal to try and make up for the loss of the Democrats, and the press plays right into it. In fact, I saw a couple of the people that were supposedly involved with all of this. They know nothing about it. They weren't in Russia. They never made a phone call to Russia. They never received a phone call. It's all fake news. It's all fake news. The nice thing is I see it starting to turn. where people are now looking at the illegal giving out classified information. It was, and let me just tell you, it was given out like so much. I'll give you an example. I called, as you know, Mexico. It was a very, very confidential classified call, but I called Mexico. And in calling Mexico, I figured, oh, well, I spoke to the president of Mexico, had a good call. All of a sudden, it's out for the world to see. It's supposed to be either confidential or classified in that case. The same thing happened with respect to General Flynn. Everybody saw this. And I'm saying, the first thing I thought of when I heard about it is, how does the press get this information that's classified? How do they do it? You know why? Because it's an illegal process, and the press should be ashamed of themselves. But more importantly, the people that gave out the information to the press should be ashamed of themselves. Really ashamed. Yes, go ahead.
Keep your vice president in the dark for almost 2 weeks.
Because when I looked at the information, I said, I don't think he did anything wrong. If anything, he did something right. He was coming into office. He looked at the information. He said, huh, that's fine. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be, and he didn't just call Russia. He called and spoke to both ways. I think there were 30-some-odd countries. He's doing the job. You know, he was just doing his job. The thing is, he didn't tell our vice president properly, and then he said he didn't remember. So either way, it wasn't very satisfactory to me. And I have somebody that I think will be outstanding for the position. And that also helps, I think, in the making of my decision. But he didn't tell the Vice President of the United States the facts, and then he didn't remember. And that just wasn't acceptable to me. Yes. I own nothing in Russia. I have no loans in Russia. I don't have any deals in Russia. Russia is fake news. This is fake news put out by the media.
Donald Trump is attempting to shift the blame to anyone but himself after his choice for National Security Advisor resigned on Monday due to lying about his involvement with the Russian government. On Wednesday, Trump took to Twitter to say that the upset is all because of the fake news and media, specifically calling out MSNBC and CNN for their coverage on Flynn's resignation.
Wall Street Journal did a story today that was almost as disgraceful as the failing New York Times' story yesterday. And it talked about, you saw it front page. So, Director of National Intelligence just put out, acting, a statement. Any suggestion that the United States intelligence community, this was just given to us, is withholding information and not providing the best possible intelligence to the president and his national security team is not true. So they took this front page story out of the Wall Street Journal, top, and they just wrote the story that it's not true. I never get phone calls from the media. How did they write a story like that in the Wall Street Journal without asking me?
Let me go back to when I was in the Reagan and Bush administration, when Reagan and Bush sent out the individuals to Iran while I was involved with the Carter administration in the Iran hostage siege. So if they wanted to impose the Logan Act on Flynn or anyone else in the Trump administration, they better go back to Newt Gingrich, they better go back to Reagan and his staff, and to Bush and his staff. I do not think they want to do that. There is no violation of the Logan Act. There is no transaction that regards money. When people are ineffectual and they have been aced out, which is what happened to Hillary, it's what happened to Bill Clinton, it's what's happened to the entire left, it happened to the Democratic Party. They didn't know how fast we were moving in and how quickly we could eviscerate them. They're eviscerated. Everything else that's occurring is nothing but a bunch of sheep bleeding out and complaining, but it has no effect whatsoever. If, however, they continue to make pronouncements like the following, that Trump is crazy, which he is not, that Trump is mad, which he is not, and this is made by psychologists, then I strongly recommend that Trump and the administration file suit against the American Psychiatric, against the American Psychological Association. Let me go back into why it's important that Flynn left. Flynn understood that he had a limited time within the National Security Agency. It had nothing to do with Bannon. It had nothing to do with Jared Kushner. It had much more to do with a much more important triumvirate, which has a legitimacy in this administration. And that triumvirate has to be James Mattis, Secretary of Defense, Pompeo, Director of the CIA, and the other generals who are involved in taking care and maintaining our stability. Now, what am I saying? This is not a military coup. What it is, in fact, is a disciplined, highly professional staff who happen to have been military officers, ran major institutions in the thousands and thousands, who now are coming into the civilian ranks, running the government as it should be a professional organization. There are two elements that are going on here. First, Trump is cleaning out our government and our institutions as if we were a nation state. Obama never treated us as a nation state. Bush Jr. never treated us as a nation state, and neither did Clinton. They had no concept that this country was more than just a group of bureaucrats who ran an organization and made kumbaya. Now we're coming to very definitive points where we have to have trade with bilateral negotiations, not multilateral. Where we have to sit down with the Canadian leaders, with the Mexican leaders, with the Japanese leaders. It's not an accident. Abe, who happens to be extremely bright and understands strategic positioning, that he came very quickly to the United States to have a relationship with Trump. So what does the press highlight? They don't understand the strategic importance of Japan. What they highlighted was the fact that there was a non-secure discussion in the dining room. Absolutely absurd. You don't put a man like Rex Tillerson, who's run a $400 billion corporation all over the world, knows every country in the Middle East and Southeast Asia better than any Foreign Service officer. He will clean out that State Department. I have run that State Department, and there have been 20,000 people. Get the slugs of the intelligence community. This new intelligence community is way different than anything else. The new man that we're getting in is a naval commander, vice admiral of the Navy Special Forces. He is far more talented in many ways than Mike Flynn. He will bring in his own team. He will then get rid of those who were brought in by Flynn. I and others who've been involved in regime change, including this regime change, can assure you that what you're seeing now, consequences of having a very rapid knife cut right through the heart of the Democratic Party, the nation, and the fact that the people who wanted to bring back capitalism, entrepreneurship, have succeeded.
Along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system.
From the beginning that what's happening is the media can no longer understand that Flynn was not intended to remain in the National Security Agency. That's news.
Because that was classified information that was given illegally. That's the real problem. Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C. alone, the press has become so dishonest that if we don't talk about it, we are doing a tremendous disservice to the American people. Tremendous disservice. We have to talk about it.
We have no personal stake in this other than the fact that we wanted major Welcome to American entrepreneurship. change in the United States, and that is what major change looks like.
I'm making this presentation directly to the American people with the media present, which is an honor to have you. This morning, because many of our nation's reporters and folks will not tell you the